to All Age Arts. I'm Veronica Anderson. Kids call me Mrs. A. So today I decided to look into a deciduous forest or a birchwood forest. And when we create our artworks today, we're going to use marker and crayons, or you can use watercolors. There's some other materials that you can use, but I will be using markers and crayons to create the artwork. I want you to think about what season you would like to have your artwork in. This one I did like fall time season, so I made sure I put some of the leaves on the ground. We are going to be talking about form, three-dimensional form, and we are going to be talking about space or perspective in today's artwork. Would you like to add architecture to your artwork? Would you like to add a woodland animal to your artwork? Or do you just want to have the forest? These are decisions you'll have to make as an artist. All right. Let's get into materials. For the materials today, I'm going to use the markers and crayons. You'll need to choose your paper and also the size of paper you would like to create your artwork on, the color of paper that you would like to create this artwork on. All of these things matter. I'm going to use a cotton swab or some type of baby wipe or a napkin that you can wet for one of the techniques if you would like. So you might want to grab one or two of those things for our artwork today. I want to remind you, creativity takes courage. Thank you for being courageous and trying this project with me. For today's project, I just want you to be aware I'm taking a regular size of white construction paper or white computer paper. I'm going to fold it in half. So that's the size that I'm working on. You can have as big or as small as you want. I'm also going to try something new, and I'm a little nervous, I have to admit, to try this project with the blue paper. I have never done this project with the blue paper. First thing I want to start out with is creating my border on this blue paper. I use the side of my marker to create a thick line. I think I'm going to try a thin line. So I'm using the tip of my marker to create a thin line for my border. That's how I'm going to start out my artwork. If you'd like to join me with that, great. If you're like, hey, Mrs. A, I don't want to have this border on my paper, no problem. This is your personal choice, no problem. All right, I have one with a thick border, one with a thin border. We are all going to start the same way, and I want you to think of your trees. And we're gonna start putting them in the picture plane. Let's start on the lower part of our paper, the lower quarter. I'm going to start with almost like a smiley face, right? In fact, I might as well. I'm gonna start with a smiley face, something new. I want you to start out with some curved lines. I'm putting that one lower in the picture plane. And before I do any other lines, I want to tell you we're going to take this line all the way up to the top of our border or to the top of your paper. Going all the way up. So I took the edges of that smile here and I'm going to bring it all the way up. Now, what if I go a little bit to the side here and create a wider top than the bottom? Naturally, trees are wider at the bottom. So what I can do if that happens, or maybe you do it on purpose, I can make branches. So I'm going to create where the tree might have branched off. In fact, I'm going to create another one over here with the letter V. There we go. All right, so now this trunk, it's thick at the bottom and then it starts to branch off at the top. This one I just took to the top of the page. Time for another tree. Well, I want just half a tree, but I want it closer than that one. I came down even farther or down lower on the picture plane, and I'm going to bring that all the way up to the top. I want to create a tree over here. Again, it's kind of like that curved line. I'm going to take it all the way to the top. And you know what, my pen kind of veered over. I'm gonna follow that mark and kind of veer it over because not all trees are straight. I love art. I mean, there we go. Could I call it a mistake? Oh, well, maybe I could call it a mistake, but I'm gonna be happy about that mistake. It just made my tree look a little more realistic. There we go. I'm gonna have to be careful. Those two trees, this one's behind that one. So there's no space that I can see in between quite yet. And we're going to talk about space a little bit more, not like outer space, but our picture plane, how we can create perspective. This one, I'm going to go behind that tree branch. This one's going to go up. Ooh, I just made that a very thin tree. Maybe I'll bring that line there. Any more? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to do this one. Maybe, oh, now I'm thinking too hard. Let me just make a mark. I was thinking too hard, so I just went for it. I'm going to bring this one up, and it's going to go behind that tree branch there. There we go. I kind of like that it's leaning that way. I like that this tree's a little crooked. This is how we are starting out our artworks. I'm going to come over here. I'm using my paper horizontal in its composition. I'm still going to do the same thing. Let me start with some smiley faces. And let me bring this all the way up, all the way up. There we go. If you're just starting out right now, don't worry if you have these other little marks because we are going to create the bark. So it's okay if you make those little marks. I'm going to be a little more aware of my line though. I'm going to make sure I'm using the tip of my marker to make sure my line is a little bit thinner. There we go. It's going to go thin all the way up. And I don't know what I want in the middle here. Do I want a path? That really shows perspective. Do I want to add shadows? Ooh, I don't know what I want in this area. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trees. I'm just going to leave it for right now and come back to this one. I'm really excited about this one. All right. Now, my trees are floating in space right now. And I want to create a couple lines in the background. If you do this real jagged line, maybe it'll be trees in the background. Or maybe those could have been mountains. This was created with 1, 2, 3 different lines for my background. This one has a mountain in the background and trees in front. This one, a mountain and maybe a hill. Let me think for this one what I want. I kind of do like a mountain. I think I do want a mountain. So I'm going to come up here. I don't want to forget where this tree is. I'm going to skip my tree. Ooh, I'm trying to look for the negative space, the space in between. There is space in between that tree. I'm going to bring my mountain up. It's going to kind of peak right there. It's going to come down, skip my tree. Let me make sure there's no tree right here. Okay, there's no tree, so let me continue that line. And there's no tree on this side, so let me continue that line. All right, now I'm really starting to think of the space in my artwork. Right now, well, I could color that blue and it could be water. Maybe I'm seeing the, some water, but I think I already told you I want that to be like a mountain. So let me imagine that line as a mountain. I think I do want like another hill. And now it's going to be easier. I can tell where my negative space is, where I'm going to skip. Skip my tree. Skip my tree. Skip. Now, if I had forgotten to skip my tree and let's say, oh, this line is, oh, I forgot and the line ran into it, please don't worry because we're about to get to the bark. There we go. Now, to create form, to create the illusion of form, that's when something is three-dimensional, I use the curved line. I didn't want to just go straight across with my tree. Let me do it over here. If I went straight across and 2 lines going up, it wouldn't look quite as real or have the form. I want it to look like it's rounded. So that's why I curve my lines. I am going to think of those curved lines as I create the bark on these birch trees or ash trees. I like creating this project. These are deciduous trees. A deciduous forest, that's a biome. A deciduous forest is dominated by deciduous trees. And that means that these trees will lose their leaves during the winter season. So this one I did like it's fall. I wanted to put the leaves and the changing colors of the leaves. So if you're doing a fall type of picture because you really like the oranges and yellows, you can add the leaves at the top. You don't have to worry about them right now. We're just thinking of the bark. Hey, I'm gonna do a couple of swirls. Some half circles too. Creating the bark of my tree. Also thinking of the curved line. I'm gonna go a little bit faster and just kind of, I'm not worried about the mark making, even if it gets a little scratchy looking. That's okay. This is the bark on my tree. All right, using thick and thin line, I've really created the bark of my birch trees, going all the way from the top to the bottom. So on this one over here, I still need to create my like horizon line. Do I want mountains, or I think I'm just gonna go with a gentle slope. I was even thinking maybe I'll add some type of architecture to this one, maybe a cabin in the back. Oop, my line went through my tree. That's so funny. So let me just create some other lines to take your eye away from that line that went through my tree. There we go. So now I have some decision making to do. I might add a little home over here. I think I'm just gonna do it instead of talking about it. I'm gonna go like it's behind the tree and a line down, keeping it real simple, and a couple of squares for windows. There we go. I'm not gonna think too much more about the home, but now making the home so small really puts the trees in the foreground. Foreground's what's closest to the viewer, and background is what's farthest away. Oh, this one I wanted to make a winter scene, and I already made these marks like grass. Not to worry. I'm not gonna worry about those right now. That's fine. Over here, I guess I'll make this one a winter scene as well. All right, I am done with my black marker for now. It's time to start thinking about my colors that I want. We were able to create the illusion of form, and form is a three-dimensional object, and we're doing that on a flat surface. So how we did it was with curved line. We can also create form with our shadows, and that's gonna come up pretty quick since I do want this to be a winter scene. Let me think about my background. I've done a lot of blue skies. Maybe I can create some type of sunset. Now, directional lines, I am thinking about it. I want to go across my paper with my sunset. So I'm going across. I'm really looking for those negative spaces too. There we go. That's the spaces in between. The background, what's farthest away, is what I'm kind of coloring in right now. There we go. Really making sure I pay attention to those in-between spaces between my tree. I might even color the sky like a yellow too. There we go. I can color right over my yellow. Ooh, try not to get it on my white bark of the trees. Really looking for that negative space. There we go. All right. If I want to add a woodland animal, I can. I wanted to kind of show you that, or a pathway. I could do that right now. Here, an animal was added. And again, that gives a nice illusion of space because the animal is behind the trees. So the trees are drawn. I could draw maybe an animal peeking out from behind the trees. I'll show you this one more time. I like looking up different woodland animals, or maybe an owl I could put. I can also add branches. Let me do that really quick. In these, I didn't really have a lot of branches that I added. I wanted to tell you, you can always go back and add branches. I kind of like that, since this is really going to be my winter scene artwork, something different. I want to add some of these branches and let the viewer understand that there are no leaves on these trees. So it's kind of my winter theme tree. There we go. So I'm kind of informing the viewer that these are branches and there are no leaves on these branches that are coming out from the tree. I'm going to create a branch that comes right out here. All right, since I wanted this to be a winter wonderland, I'm going to bring that wet cloth, or you can go wet a paper towel. I'm using a baby wipe, and I'm gonna touch the side of my tree. I have to decide where the light source is coming from. This one, I created the light source to the right side of the paper because the shadow's on the left side of the trees. This one, the shadow's on the left side, or on the, left side as well. So let me go on the right side, something different. Always trying to do something different. I'm just gonna touch this all the way down my tree. Gonna touch this. Oh, it's changing the value of that black to the gray. It's such a fun thing to do. I think there's gonna be a shadow right here continuing down from that branch. The tree behind it will also have a shadow. Going all the way down my paper. Oh, that curved tree, I love it. All the way down. This tree that's behind the other one. And this shadow going all the way up. Now that I have the shadow on the right side of my tree, if I want to continue the shadow on my snow, which I'm interested in doing for this project, I will need to also make my shadow going to the right of my tree. I'm going to take it right here and create that shadow. Now I'm going to skip my tree because that shadow is behind my tree. This tree, I'm going to run that shadow all the way over. All the way over. It's a neat effect. It's a great way to make a shadow. Now, if you're like, Mrs. A, I used a Sharpie. I didn't use the Crayola markers or a washable marker. How can I create shadow? You can color it in. This one, I used crayon to color in the shadow. So you can always, pick up a purple or a black, whatever you want your shadow, and you can color that shadow in. Something nice about using crayons to color your shadow in is it changes the texture. And so it kind of reiterates that the bark of my tree has a texture, and it looks like a rough texture with the crayon. I feel like this winter scene that I wanted to do, it kind of smoothed out my bark a little bit, but I still like it. I want to go back in and kind of play with these shadows. I'm liking the way it looks. On this, my shadow is off the side of my tree, but I'm not going to let that bother me. I'm not going to let that bother me at all. In fact, let me come over here and see if this is going to work on blue paper. Yes. Ooh, my shadow's making a noise. There we go. Oh, you know what? I automatically made my shadows go the same direction. So that means I better put a little shade. And I was going to make this a nighttime. Oh my goodness. There's no mistakes in art. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to create a moon. A moon shadow. Oh, that's so funny that I just automatically went into this picture because I was having so much fun. Oh, you might have heard my dog. He has an opinion on the noise this is making as well. I was wondering when it appear in some of my videos. There we go. Oh, this is so neat. I'm excited about this one now. Except I discovered that you couldn't really see the white. So you're not going to see a moon if I put it there. I'm going to put it there anyways. I guess I can see it. Sometimes details in art are very subtle. I can still see it. In fact, let me get to my home over here. Let me add a little bit of color. This is like the first time I'm really adding color. So this is going to become a focal point over here by adding these colors. That's going to become a focal point. Do I want it to be a focal point? Ooh, maybe I'll put it like it's showing in the snow. Let me use this white. Okay, it just barely shows up in this. It really does barely show up. So I might need to add something else. I'll have to think about what I might add to this. Maybe this is where I'll add a woodland animal. That way my warm colors won't be in just one spot. For this, I created a winter wonderland. I could actually leave it like this, but I want to create some type of purple or blue for my mountains. They're farther away. Foreground's what's closest to the viewer. Middle ground, like kind of in the middle of our picture, kind of you can still see that those are trees. Background, well, there might be some trees up in this mountain, but it's so far away that there's no detail, attention to detail for it. I think I'll pick up the blue. Well, this I did blue, this I did orange. I think I'll pick up the blue for maybe some shadows. The shadows of the hillside. Now I did make this like it was sunset, so I'm using my blue very lightly, transparent. I'm using my blue very, very lightly. In fact, I'm holding my crayon up at the top just to make sure I'm not able to apply any heavy pressure. Sometimes I do that to kind of challenge myself and remind myself I really want this to just be gentle adding of color. I'm gently adding these colors. I can also think of my sunlight. It's coming from this side, so maybe I'll keep this tip of the mountain white and maybe I'll color a little bit more of the blue on this side. Very light and pressure. Oh, yes, I do like this detail. Details can be very, very subtle, barely there. And I used a very subtle addition of a blue. I think I'll take that down into this one too. Again, the light is coming from this way. Since the shadow is over on the right-hand side of the tree, the light's coming from the left. So I'm gonna really shadow the right side of this hill, but maybe leave the left side white. So I'm gonna create those shadowed areas. And maybe even on this little hill here. There we go. Something else I want to add to my winter wonderland, footsteps. I really want to invite the viewer. I want the viewer to feel like they're following somebody, they're following a pathway, or there's a water source they can get to. The trees in the background, I want it to seem inviting. I think I'll do some footsteps with the same blue. I'm going to go in really light. As the footsteps are maybe getting farther away, I'll put them closer together. All right. That'll lead your eye kind of to behind that tree. Hey, maybe they're not footsteps. Maybe they were created by an animal. Maybe they are tracks, but it definitely takes your eye over. Right now, I want to show you a few samples that were created for me. This project can be done with watercolors, and I want to show you how that can be done. So if you take a paper and you paint your background, and then take another paper and draw your birch trees. You will then cut out your birch trees, put them on your paper, but again, remember, stagger where your tree comes out of the ground to create that illusion of space. The illusion of space. This one doesn't even really have any lines behind it to show you any other hills or mountains, but you still have that idea of illusion of space. And here's an artwork that was created for me by an art student of mine. Again, she painted the background, she created snow, and I like that she left her trees that she can add animals still, because we talked about adding animals. I'll show you one that has animals that were collaged. Here we go. So we left the trees, instead of gluing them all the way down, just in case we wanted to add some woodland animals in the background. Again, this one was created with acrylic paint, and the trees were cut out and put on it. Today, we just drew our trees on a paper. This is two-dimensional, but we did make it look like it has form. We made it look like it was three-dimensional. Thank you for creating with me today. I'm just going to show you a couple more samples. This one has that woodland animal in it and a path. There are some shadows that were drawn with the crayon. Hey, somebody might have put a heart on that tree. And one more. Here's another fall time with a building. Did you add some type of architecture in your artwork? Did you add a path? Did you add shadow? And if not, no problem. Maybe you created an artwork without the light source or shadow. Maybe you didn't want to have an animal in it. I cannot wait to see what you create.